to 15 for 15. I am your host, John Zalkin from RKW Residential. 15 for 15 is a new and exciting video series where we interview 15 influential real estate people for 15 minutes each, where we will get their perspective on what's happening in real estate during COVID-19. A little bit about RKW. RKW Residential is an award-winning, third-party, multifamily property management firm with over 20,000 multifamily units under management and a growing footprint spanning 6 states. RKW delivers expertise in multifamily management through its technology, marketing, and customer experience platforms. My guest today is Barry Lapides from Berger Singerman. Barry concentrates his practice in complex commercial real estate and finance transactions, including acquisitions, dispositions, leasing, development, joint ventures, financing, workouts, commercial mortgage-backed securities, and loan structuring involving office buildings, shopping centers, hotel, raw land, and residential developments. Barry, there's not much you were missing. I like that. Barry, great to see you. I really appreciate you taking the time today to join me on this episode of 15 for 15. I'm really excited to hear what you're seeing in the market today and what you're seeing in the legal side. So let's get to work. Briefly, just give me a little more in your bio. I know I just read 9 paragraphs. And then give me a little background on the bio and then also what you're seeing in the markets. And let's dig into this.
Sure. Well, first, thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be with you. Man, I'm seeing in the markets what everyone's seeing. People are scared. People are confused. People are focused right now in the last week on these SBA loans and other federal and state grants, navigating those from a both commercial and legal standpoint on whether or not they qualify, whether or not they are, how they can be eligible for the maximum amount, and the strategy of whether or not they keep employees or whether or not they try to retain employees in order to get the deferment or the elimination of the payback. At least that's under the CARE Act. My practice prior to COVID-19 was really, in the last couple of years, has really been focused a lot on joint ventures, financing, and acquisition of multifamily and office buildings. I do have a lot of work with hard money lenders as well, both in the multifamily space and office and raw land. We were seeing a robust economy before this. I think we'll be back once everything stabilizes here, but we're going through a trough, and it's a deep trough. We got here quickly, and hopefully we'll exit quickly.
Yeah, we'll talk about the CARES Act a little bit, because I know it just came out last week, and people want to know about it and what's happening. If you could fill in a little bit how it's affecting clients and some points from it would be great.
Sure. The CARES Act is part of this Corona Relief Act. It provides many different things, but the main thing that's getting publicity is this 2.5 times payroll loan that businesses can receive from the federal government through the SBA, Small Business Administration. Application just came out last night, and the phones and emails have been off the hook today dealing with submitting those applications. 99% of the people can submit the application by themselves. You don't need a lawyer to submit the application. What you do need to consider is, have you fired or furloughed your employees prior to the enactment of this, the CARES Act, because that impacts how much you can receive in federal money. So we're receiving calls from hotels, development companies dealing with how to deal with their employer issues, because that's really where we're seeing the crux of the calls with respect to the CARES Act.
So does this cover anybody for their rent as well and mortgage payment? Is it just rent payments? Like, how does it work? So I know it covers the payrolls, but how does it help the business owner themselves?
There's a list of qualified expenditures you can use the dollars for. Rent's one of them, payroll's one of them, just your general overhead. You can use that money, and if you keep your employees, the idea is you take a look back of what your payroll was. You get 250% of your monthly payroll If you keep those employees employed during a specific time period, then you can get the loan repayment waived. If not, I believe there's a 4% interest payment that you would owe for the if you terminate any of the employees.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk a little bit. I know you have some experience in the CMBS markets. I know Freddie and Freddie. I know some of those came out saying there's reliefs. If you don't evict somebody for 120 days, then they have 30 days to leave after that. I know there's like a lot. There are all these guidelines that came out the other day, but I know in the CMBS market that doesn't really cover. So, what are you seeing with some of your clients and with the CMBS market right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing real concern with the special servicers and borrowers. Borrowers, first and foremost, if borrowers have a CMBS loan, they need to look at their loan docs very carefully to see whether or not they're allowed to take subordinated debt. If you obtain a CARES loan through the SBA and your loan documents prohibit subordinated debt, you could be breached. So you have to be very careful with that. We've been fielding calls on those issues. Some of the loan docs allow borrowers to request lenders to approve, and lenders have the ability to approve. Sometimes we're seeing an outright prohibition. And so that's a concern. And the concern is also right now, going back to the SBA CARES Act loan, is that there's only a $350 billion pot right now. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said today on CNBC that they'll go back to Congress if they run out of money. There's a lot of people thinking that they're going to run out of money. So we need to be, it really is first in, first out, getting your monies in. So you have to apply today, tomorrow, or as quickly as possible to try to get your hands on those dollars. Getting back to CMBS, for those borrowers who are not paying their debt service and their loans going to special servicing, borrowers need to be careful because there's special servicing fees and there's default interest, and they're brutal, and it's really hard to get waived because those rules and those fees are governed by a pooling and servicing agreement, which is really outside the purview of the borrower. So borrowers of CMBS debt really need to be cognizant of how stringent the rules are, and need to be, it's good on the front end, CMBS debt. Sometimes you get what you pay for.
Yeah, no, we saw that in 2009 and 10, where it looked good till it wasn't. So
Exactly.
You're on all ends of the spectrum, tenants, landlords. Give us some idea of what's happening on the retail to the office to the multifamily, what you're seeing, some stories and some anecdotal stuff, how bad it is or how maybe it's not so bad out there.
For my multifamily landlords, I'm not seeing, they're not anticipating so many defaults from their tenants. Many of them are people, they are anticipating, an increase in the number of defaults or late payments. But I've heard of many landlords that are receiving their payments today. On the retail side, that's a different animal. I think a lot of retail tenants are seeking abatements or deferrals, and I've been, my landlord clients are giving it on a case-by-case basis. I have one landlord client that has a retail center that they've given a deferral across the board because they've gotten a deferral from their lender for a 3-month period. So they've passed that down and they've paid that forward. On the office side, I'm hearing landlords be a lot more aggressive because those are white collar workers and they can work remotely. And what I'm hearing, office landlords is go pound sand. You need to pay me. We're not allowing defaults on the office side. we are seeing some office tenants try to get out of this, and we're going to be aggressive with that.
So you, on your landlord side, you guys are put the flag in the sand for right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Any deals that happened, didn't happen during this time, under contract, fell out, any retrades, anything like that happening?
Yeah, it was interesting. We had one deal that we were negotiating. It was down in Sunrise, and it was a multifamily purchase. It was a hefty price. I represented the buyer group. We got down to the last contractual provision, and then this COVID-19 really hit. And I said to the client, I said, listen, even though you have a pretty healthy, it was a 60-day diligence period, I said, we really should have a force majeure clause to deal with this COVID-19. And most purchase and sale agreements don't have a force majeure clauses. Leases do, but a lot of times the purchase and sale of property doesn't. And this one didn't, this document. So we added the provision, and the seller came back and said, you know what, we're taking the property off the market.
Wow.
And we weren't expecting that response, because we thought it was we were ready to sign. They were ready to sign. We were ready to fund. And they didn't want to extend this under this uncertainty.
Very interesting. Yeah. We're starting to hear, we have some clients that are purchasing, some are walking away. I don't think today's environment, anyone really knows what the value of the asset's going to be. As today is April 1st, we're all from the multifamily side waiting for effects and seeing how things are coming in. And, I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry, and people are expecting a very strong rate of income to come in. They're not expecting a lot of defaults. We mostly on the A class, so that's a little different. I'm sure in the C class, there's going to be maybe a little more, but hopefully with the CARES Act and all this, other money flowing in, we should be able to weather the storm and get through it. So is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything else you missed today that you want to let the public know about what's happening out in the markets?
It's interesting. One last thing, there's a human element to all of this. And I think even though the court systems are closed right now, at least in the state of Florida, we all have to be cognizant how the actions you take now will look in 6 months when you're in front of a judge. If you're really taking a hard line for no reason whatsoever, or you're trying to be reasonable, because this isn't an event that we've ever experienced. And every single person in this country is living through the same event and having the same fears, same anxieties. So we're counseling our clients to the extent that it's commercially reasonable to be reasonable, because when we want to be able to argue, the facts are on our side and the law's on our side.
No, that's interesting. You said really rings home is during 9/11, it affected America more than anybody. Wars are usually between countries. This may be the first time that the whole world is affected by the same thing, and we all have, the same issues and problems going on. So I know there's a lot of money in South Florida and, in the U.S. from foreign investors. So it's interesting that when you speak to people, everyone's pretty much on the same page.
Yep.
So with that, I want to wrap up this phase of it and go into my lightning round questions. I'm going to ask you quickly a few different questions. Answer yes, no, or over and under. You ready for your lightning round?
Let's do it.
Does the 10-year note close under or over 1% in 2020?
Under.
Next time you're on an airplane, over or under 90 days?
Way under.
Next time you attend a networking event, over or under 90 days?
Way under.
Wow. Next lunch or dinner at a restaurant with a client, over or under 90 days?
Doesn't even have to be with a client. Under.
The election could be suspended, yes or no?
Impossible. It will not be suspended.
Will Trump win or lose?
I think he will lose.
Does the stock market end over or under 20,000 at the end of the year?
Push.
Oh, does the U.S. COVID-19 infection rate go over or under 500,000 in the U.S.?
Way over.
Do you think you will be on a vacation in the next 6 months?
This is our vacation right now.
Kids at the house. So, Barry, I really want to thank you for joining me today in this episode. I really enjoyed it. This was a good conversation. Everyone, we hope you all stay safe and practice social distancing and make sure to wash your hands. Barry, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. If you have any questions or would like to find this video, please visit rkwresidential.com.